And this episode of Archipiélago Histórico is brought to you by The Works Cafe, serving healthy food and community since 1988 across New England. Menu items include chef-inspired salads, organic quinoa bowls, real fruit and veggie smoothies, and much more. Whether you're looking for a quick bite or a sit-down meal, The Works Cafe has something for everyone. And for all your catering needs, The Works Cafe has you covered. Whether it is a big meeting or a special event, trust us to provide delicious options that will impress your guests. Find us on EasyCater or visit our website at workscafe.com to learn more. Let us make your next event a success. And this episode is brought to you by Turismo Borincano, your guide to unique experiences within Puerto Rican communities. Explore the rich history, agriculture, gastronomy, culture, and biodiversity of Puerto Rico through their incredible tours. Visit turismoborincano.com to start your next adventure. Plus, they offer accessible tours for people with disabilities, ensuring that everyone can experience the beauty of Puerto Rico without breaking the bank. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ramón González-Arango López, and on this episode of Archipiélago Histórico, we'll be talking with Corey Patrick White. How is everything?
Excellent. I'm so excited to be on the show, and I'm just grateful that you reached out, and just excited for this conversation.
Thank you very much. As I was saying before we started recording, every now and then I like to bring someone who is out of the topic in terms of not necessarily someone who is a historian or focuses on Caribbean and Latin American history, but still has something worthwhile to bring to the audience. In this case, you are, let's say, a cybersecurity analyst and advisor, but you also have a background in journalism, so you've been studying these things for a long time now. And I wanted to talk to you about cybersecurity, about algorithms, about bias, about extremism, because yes, this is a podcast about Caribbean and Latin American history, but we still live in the now world, which is increasingly interconnected, and where we see dangers in the internet and a lot of things that are a little concerning. And that's when you come in the picture, because hopefully we will have a conversation where we can learn about how to potentially defend or what to look out for. For the people in the audience that may not be familiar with your work, please tell us about yourself and your interest.
Okay. I work at a company called Future Point of View, so that's my day job. I'm a security analyst at Future Point of View, so I'm focused in the areas of cybersecurity and risk and artificial intelligence. As you said, I am a journalist. I went to college at the University of Colorado at Boulder, studied journalism, did a number of years as a TV sports anchor, and then ended up falling into this technology consulting at Future Point of View, and we're a company based in Oklahoma City. And we focus in on cybersecurity. We focus in on technology modernization, on leadership, on strategy, on how organizations can both use technology to improve their processes, to improve efficiency, to serve their customers better. But also, we focus in on the risk side of it as well, like the risks that come with technologies. As you know, when you put data up into the cloud, or when we're digitizing this data, there becomes risk. And also there's now risk from artificial intelligence systems as well. As these systems grow, become more popular, there's going to be risk involved in them as well.
Yes. So how did you first become involved with this world? What made you become interested in it?
Well, when it comes to AI and artificial intelligence systems, I gave a TEDx talk a number of years ago on bias in artificial intelligence systems, and at the time, I was working, or I was serving with a nonprofit that focused in on how do we bring people together, different classes, different races, and just be able to have conversations. And I was reading more and more about these biases in these systems. And so I kept digging and digging and digging, and it's built up enough knowledge around it to give a presentation on it. And then I gave it to that nonprofit, gave it a couple other places, and then ended up giving the speech at TEDx Oklahoma City a couple of years ago. And it's just an interesting topic to me, and I think it's important that people understand these systems. They understand the implications. They understand the implications they have on their lives, because a lot of times we don't see them when we talk about artificial intelligence, when we talk about the algorithms, but they are become so ubiquitous in our lives that it's important for us to understand how they can change our behaviors, how they can drive us in certain different directions. It's important for us to understand them so we can know, we can be educated on when these things are occurring.
You just said something that's very key to me. It makes me think about how in the past, before the internet, you were being conditioned on a daily basis by society, by your family, by your peers, by the education system, by whatever influences. But now you have to add to that the internet. And you say that the internet and technology does have the power to influence your decision making and how you and the things that you believe in, and it does influence you. But to your knowledge, what are the biggest risks for, let's say, everyday humans when it comes to that stuff?
Well, I think one thing you're focused in on right now is extremism, and just the how the artificial intelligence systems can drive you into believing a certain subject. I think that it can drive you down into what we call a rabbit hole. Maybe I think that's one of the dangers that you see is understanding that these systems are guiding you. They're feeding you what you want to consume. You know, and a lot of times when it's like a cat video, it's not a big deal, right? You're into cats, you like to see the cat video. But when it gets into politics, when it gets into important societal issues, that could be a real danger.
So the algorithm, if you, let's say you like this video which is about a specific side of the political spectrum, and then it starts feeding you that same let's say agenda or topics from the same people. So that's basically what you're saying, right? It's
Mhm.
everything is kind of designed to give you what you want so that you stay tuned.
Exactly, exactly. It's designed, algorithms are designed to give you what you want, right? They're designed to keep you, to attract you, to keep you on a platform for as long as possible. Google is designed to get you the information as quickly as possible. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they're designed to try and keep you on the app as much as possible. And by doing that, they're just going to continue to feed you videos or content that you want to see. And so they're going to constantly reinforce whatever your beliefs are, because they're trying to keep you on the app instead of showing you contrary views, things that you might not want to see.
So a lot of people talk about algorithms, and I think that the general public does have a certain or at least a basic understanding of what an algorithm is. But what is essentially an algorithm?
It is an algorithm is essentially it's data, and it's like so it's data that it is the algorithm is ingesting a ton of data, and then it's learning about you. So it's constantly feeding on your information. So Facebook is constantly learning your likes, the things that you are interested in, and then it's feeding that thing back to you. So it's just consuming data, and then it's making decisions based on that data.
So it's like a, let's say, a mathematical equation
Mhm.
that's, let's say, put into a software that is assigned to keep everyone in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, so from a computational perspective, it is like a mathematical equation that's there and interacts with the software to do exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting to me because I I've always wanted to learn a little bit about coding, but it's just so interesting to me how numbers and equations have a real dynamic with programs that you interact with. I
Mhm.
don't know. That's just something that really interests me.
Yeah.
Um, who are the big players when it comes to algorithms?
Well, I mean, they're the big software companies. And when you say algorithms, technology algorithms,
Hmm.
digital algorithms, so obviously you have a Google, you have, a Facebook, which Facebook, or Meta, now it's Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram. And then you have, TikTok. So the big social media algorithms, but those are the big ones you think about. But essentially every technology that you're using, in some ways is defined on the back end. There's an algorithm behind it in a lot of ways. There's any type of interaction you're having with the technology. A lot of times is driven by an algorithm.
So you're saying that these algorithms are designed to feed you what you want,
Often,
but
yes.
what is like a strategy you would recommend people to? Okay, this is your comfort zone. Let's get out of it. Let's be available or able to see other points of view. How do you do that?
I think it's reading, like in many ways, when we talk about politics, it's reading different points of view. So, if you consume, let's say Fox News, maybe you need to consume MSNBC as well. I have a friend who says maybe you should only watch the network that's, so if I'm conservative, I should only watch MSNBC. If I'm liberal, maybe I should only watch Fox News. It's getting out of your comfort zone and reading and consuming things that are different than maybe what you would believe in. And it's finding diverse viewpoints as well. It's going out into the community and meeting people who are different or outside of the church you go to, or the maybe the job, or outside, they live outside your community. Go into different communities, meet with different people, and just increase your worldview, increase your perspective. So it's not just reading or consuming, but it's also, when it comes to technology, but it's also consuming with people, and increasing your worldview when it comes to, meeting people and getting different perspectives. That's my number one advice to people when it comes to, when you say, getting out of the algorithm and what we might call a rabbit hole.
I understand what you're saying, but well, you have a background in journalism. It is my opinion that neither MSNBC or Fox News are actual. That to me is pure propaganda. I don't think it has a journalistic feel to it, if you might call it that.
Yeah, when I use those two as an example, I'm just saying to go out and read diverse viewpoints, to go out and
Mm.
not be in the same, in the same sector, to be reading the same, consuming the same, platform every time. Go out, but of course, I mean, news is one of those things that's changing.
Mm-hmm.
The news business is changing so rapidly right now. And when we talk about, you didn't talk about national news, but what about local news? And you're seeing all of these local newspapers and these local platforms. They're just fading. And that's, so what you're seeing in these local news deserts, and that can be extremely dangerous when it comes to our democracy, because who's watching, the school board meetings, who's watching the town halls, who's watching the city council meetings, who's going in and making sure that the local politicians aren't swindling money, right? We need good journalism in local communities, and that's something I'm really concerned about. Is that we're missing good journalism a lot of times in local communities, and that's dangerous.
Do you think we're being quote unquote dumbed down? Or being dumbed down?
I think we are so inundated by information today. I think there's just so much information out there that it's difficult for us to consume. And so a lot of times we seek the headline, we seek the quick synopsis on what's going on. And we often don't dig into an issue. We don't dig into a story because we don't have the time. And there's just too much stuff going on and too much to consume. And so in that way, I think we are just overwhelmed by information. And so it can be difficult to dig into. Being dumbed down, no, I mean, again, there's a lot of things out there, and they can cause us to be dumbed down. But I also think there's just so much stuff, and we struggle to consume it.
Interesting. So, to give you an example, sometimes when I go to the gym, there's some TVs there, and while I'm doing my thing, I look at the TV, and there's Fox News, for instance, and there's something called the Ingraham Report or something like that, and it's just a lady talking. But I noticed that there's always something like a sentence or something. The Democrats are stealing from you, blah 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 blah. There's something like inflammatory comments like that, and I'm like, is this really news? Is this really a healthy way to talk about political issues? It's just attack after attack. And for the record, I say the same thing about MSNBC.
Yeah.
I don't like any of them.
I think.
But what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think then we've gotten to the point that it's the headlines become more shocking, right? We need, so let's say in the old days, if you were a New York Times reader, you got your news from the New York Times, right? You read the New York Times. You're on the subway reading the New York Times. Well, then people started consuming their news from, like, let's say, a Facebook. From, let's say, so people share articles on Facebook, and people are getting their news off of Facebook. Well, what that does is it causes these news organizations to increase the drama of the headline, to try and get headlines that are more shocking, that are going to draw in people, that are going to bring in clicks. And so the more shocking the headline, the more likely people that are going to click on it. And when it comes to like an MSNBC or a Fox News, it's very similar in that, like, the more dramatic, the more crisis the headline is, the more likely people are going to watch. People want that drama, and so you're going to increase the drama as much as you can to bring in viewers.
To your knowledge, and this is a rumor that I heard, is it true that both of those networks are owned by the same corporation?
No, not to my knowledge. MSNBC and Fox News?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge, but I'd have to look at that. I believe NBC is owned, and Fox, they're two different organizations, Fox and NBC.
I heard that maybe there was some parent company that owned both of these, something like that.
I don't believe so, but I don't know that for certain.
And speaking about corporations, do you think that the business side of things is also a problem, where we see news as a product that needs to be sold, as opposed to a product, if you might call it that way, that is intended to educate or inform people? Do you see a problem with that?
I mean, I see it to a certain extent. And I think that is one of the reasons that we're seeing, this lack of journalism. We go back to local journalism, in that there's no real money anymore in local journalism. So people newspapers are dying, local newspapers, because there's no money in it. But there is a societal value in having local news. So I see somebody stepping in, whether it be nonprofits who care about local journalism, who believe in it, and raise money to have local newspapers, or whether it be the government stepping in a model like the PBS that say we're going to fund this local journalism, and we're going to hands off. We're going to have no content. We can't control the content. Hands off, but we're going to give you a chunk of money to be able to, like a PBS or a BBC in the UK. Where it's kind of funded by the government. So I do see a problem. Obviously, we live in a capitalist society. It's, and media, there is value in capitalism, but there's also value in having good journalism as well.
Yeah, and one of the problems or the criticism towards capitalism is that it's constantly in need of new markets. It's constantly creating new markets. That's why I was talking about information, how it is now. I think seen more of a business than actual journalism. That's something I'm noticing for a long time, and you might extrapolate that to other, not only to journalism but to other products or things as well. But yeah, that's something that has to do with local journalism and stuff. What about the internet? How do we get into that?
How do we get in the internet and local journalism?
Yeah, let's connect what we were talking about with the internet and all that.
Well, I think when it comes to local journal, I think journalism generally is going to be internet based in the future. So it's going to be, whether that be on video or whether that be articles and newsletters. So I think any medium that is created is going to have to be online on the internet. I mean, people are not going to go back to probably reading physical newspapers on a daily basis. It's just not going to happen. Nobody's going to get the newspaper delivered to their doorstep anymore. So I think when it comes to that, the platforms are going to have to be internet based.
But I don't know. It's certainly possible. There's not a huge chance, but one of the problems that I see with that is, what if the internet or something happens and we no longer have connectivity?
We no longer have the internet. Somebody drops the big in-bomb and we don't. I mean, that is a concern. I mean, when you talk about, things like, if I didn't have my Google Maps, I wouldn't be able to find my driveway, right? I mean, what if I didn't have Google Maps anymore? There are certain skills that we used to possess that we no longer possess. I don't remember any phone numbers. Like, if I lost my cell phone, I don't know how I would contact people. I don't know, So, there are these certain skills that we are losing because of our technology, and that can be dangerous. Do I think the internet's going to go out? No, I don't. But yeah, there are certain skills that we no longer possess because of technology. But I think that's happened over time. That it happens. We don't, we used to farm. We don't farm anymore. People don't, most regular people aren't farmers. So these things have happened. We lose skills. But, do I think the internet's going to go out? No, probably not.
Let me rephrase that, because that sounds a little funny. It's not necessarily that the internet might go away, but, let's have a situation where the power grid, something happens to it.
Yeah.
You don't have electricity, and therefore you no longer have these other things. So, yeah, what you were saying, we're increasingly very dependent on these things, and that's what I'm more referring to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really concerning, because I like to be as old school as possible. Like, I think that, okay, technology is great, but you should be able to do math without a calculator. So what are your comments on that? This is outside of the scope of information, but yeah.
Well, I think it's important to have skills, certainly. I think, technology is a tool. It's a tool, and you can rely too much on it. You can rely too heavy on it. Like anything else, you can be addicted to your smartphone. You can sit around and use social media too much. So I think it's finding the right balance. And that's something that we teach at our organization, Future Point of View, we teach digital well-being. And that's just essentially how do you use technology in a healthy way? Because it can. I mean, it can become overwhelming. You see people are more depressed. You see people are angrier. I notice it in myself when I'm lonelier. I see myself checking social media more, and I have to check myself and say, okay, I'm noticing that this is a problem, and then I have to correct it. So I think it's having that healthy balance, but also that awareness
Yeah.
of every person has to be aware of am I using this too much? Am I consuming too much social media? Am I relying too heavy on my phone? Am I spending too much time in front of my laptop? Do I need to go outside? Am I watching too much Netflix, or should I go to the gym? It's just finding that balance and understanding, nobody can do that for you. I mean, you can use tools. There's apps, and there's advice from people that can help you. I mean, if you're struggling with your mental health, go see a therapist, obviously. But you have to understand your boundaries, and you have to understand when this is becoming a problem.
It's a mindfulness.
Yeah, digital well-being, mindfulness, and it's important. It's so important today. I mean, everything we do pretty much today is done on a device, and so we have to understand, when we need to get away from it, when we need to go take a walk, when we need to be outside, and how much time is too much time when it comes to being in front of our devices.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is overwhelming because, I think about myself, and I have a wife and everything. And sometimes I do think that I work too much, and that can be a little, it takes, it has consequences on other side of your lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, there's pluses too, Ramon. You and I connected online. We're doing this podcast. You're in New Hampshire. I'm in Oklahoma. We're able to do this podcast because of technology, and that's fantastic. We can have this conversation that we never would have been able to have, even probably, even pre-pandemic. We probably could have had it, but it wouldn't have been as easy, because we've now gotten adjusted to things like to these platforms, these telecommunication platforms, teleconferencing platforms. So technology has done some really wonderful things in this world, and it's going to continue to do some wonderful things in this world. But again, it's a tool. So it's understanding how do we use technology in a healthy way and not in a dangerous way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've seen some, let's say, events and some movements. I don't remember the specific term, but I know the second one is a detox. I think it's digital detox or something like that, where you,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's people going to a bank without their, sorry, to a park without their phones. What
Mhm.
do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think again, it's using it in a healthy way. I mean, I go to a church, and right now we're in the middle of 21 days of prayer and fasting. So it's fasting from something, that you enjoy. And a lot of people use social media. They say, I'm going to get off social media for 21 days. I'm not going to be in it. So again, I think detox is very healthy. For some people, it's tough. I mean, we all have to use technology to a certain extent, but I think I think a detox is great. Anytime you can get away from something that's hurting your mental health, I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. Um, what are some of the specific ways you've seen technology or algorithms having an impact on bias and extremism? Because I did see your video on the tech talk that you did, but let's maybe see another example outside of the one that you gave in that conference.
Okay. I mean, the classic example when it comes to extremism and algorithms is, maybe the YouTube, which I didn't talk about. And it's the classic example is like, a kid is doing a research project on the Holocaust, goes to YouTube because that's where kids get all their information these days. It's YouTube pretty much. And I'm generalizing here, but so the kid goes to YouTube and looks at the Holocaust and sees a video, like, oh, the Holocaust was a terrible thing, or the Holocaust didn't happen. What is the kid most likely going to click on? well, the Holocaust didn't happen. It's a little more compelling, right? So then the algorithm continues to feed this child content about Holocaust denialism. And then so this child goes down what they call an extremist rabbit hole, into where they begin to believe that, that the Holocaust didn't happen, or that the Earth is flat, or that, there's a, child's sex ring at a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. The algorithm continues to feed them, and then they go down this conspiracy rabbit hole.
Yeah, no. That's very interesting to me, because I did kind of that same exercise the other day, because I was doing an episode on a subject that was recorded yesterday, and I did the exercise of going into YouTube and write that and see what comes up. And what I saw was just a bunch of sensationalist content about that, demonizing content. It had something to do with Afro-Cuban religion. So I saw a video where the guy spoke like this, like it was a storytelling kind of thing, but it was very sensationalist, and it was very dark and stuff, and it was not necessarily portraying it in the best of lights.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you're saying, because I've seen it myself. And when you have people who don't have the ability to critical thinking, do critical thinking or analyze things, they will not question these things at all. And that's a problem. So what do you have to say about the need for developing critical thinking skills from a very young age?
I think it's paramount. And it's not just kids I use the example of the kid doing the research project. There are a lot of adults who struggle with critical thinking, who struggle with believing, let's say, the QAnon conspiracy. There's a lot of adults out there who struggle with this stuff as well, believing in conspiracy theories. But I think media literacy is paramount. And absolutely, Ramon, we need to be teaching media literacy in schools. We hand kids a phone, right? We hand them a phone. And we essentially, this is the most powerful tool that man has ever created. And we hand this tool to the kids, and we give them no skills to be able to figure out how to use it. Schools need to be teaching media literacy. We need to be teaching kids how do you critical think? How do you read the news? How do you look at things critically? How do you look at the media critically? How do you look at what you're seeing on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram? And how do you look at that critically? And those are things that the schools just are not doing right now. And it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy that we're not in our education system, that we're not teaching this stuff. And other countries are starting to do it. Here in the United States, we need to be starting to do that. We need to be teaching media literacy in schools.
I keep hearing that the new generation of kids has lower levels of literacy overall. Like they cannot read, or they cannot understand what they're reading. Do you know anything about that? Because
I don't know any of the rates of kids and media and literacy and reading rates. Excuse me. But I would say that, again, kids are consuming more information. They're more information. They're inundated with information, and it's only going to get worse because now you've got all this AI generated content. It becomes so much easier to generate content that it's only going to continue to snowball the amount of content that all of us, not just kids, but all of us are forced to consume. And, the thing with kids is their brains really haven't developed yet. So it's more of a struggle for them because their brains haven't developed. So, understanding and consuming this content can be more of a struggle.
What's your stance on kids having phones and devices from a very young age? My particular stance is hard no.
I think it's up to the parent. I don't have children. So I'm not one to give really good parenting advice, but I think it's important to, number one, teach the skills if you do give kids the phone, and also to be understanding of kids. I do talk a little bit about parenting in the digital age. And, I think the statistics are like the first time a child sees porn, now is like the age of like the average age is like 12. Like it's really young kids. And the thing is that if you're a parent and you're gonna go hard no, you're never gonna look at porn. You're probably not going to be able to police that, right? Because they're going to see it in school. They're going to see when they're hanging out with their friends. So it's important to teach kids not that no, you shouldn't look at porn. It's important to teach them why they shouldn't look at porn. They shouldn't look at porn because it's going to hurt their relationships later. It's also demeaning to the gender that you're looking at the porn of. Typically it's young men or young boys looking at females, and that's demeaning to women. So it's teaching those types of things and saying that if you look at this stuff now, it's going to hurt your relationships later, and it can become an addiction. So it's important to teach kids the skills on the reasons why you shouldn't be looking at this stuff instead of just saying, no, we're not going to have it. And it's also being understanding, right? Kids today, they live in this world. I mean, I got a computer when I was in middle school. And I'll be honest, I got the internet when I was in middle school, and my parents, they were not prepared for a child with the internet. I mean, all of a sudden this entire world just opens up to me, the good and the bad. And kids today, they live in that world, and we don't. A lot of time we didn't grow up in the world of Instagram and TikTok, and now you're going to see the world of AI generated content. This AI generation of kids, we didn't grow up in this world, but they live in it on a daily basis. So, and sometimes parents, we have to let our kids become our teachers, right? We have to say, what's going on? What are you seeing? Teach me about this stuff. Tell me what you're going through. And that can be a difficult thing for parents to do, to flip that, reverse it, and say, okay, you're going to teach me about this stuff. And that can be a difficult position for some parents to put themselves into.
I tend to be very conservative on a lot of things like that, which is why I said hard no, because to me, a kid should be a kid. And my definition of a kid, and I understand that times changes and stuff, but I want to see kids playing outside of the house and not being stuck to a screen 24/7 on the sofa.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, getting obese, not having any physical activity done. I want kids to have social skills, like be able to fight or argue or talk or have fun with other kids. Because what I'm seeing, and maybe you can say I'm focusing too much on the negative aspects of technology, but I'm in contact with young kids, specifically kids who are entering the university. And I'm seeing a lack of social skills, or maybe they're being conditioned by the latest political tendencies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so for parents, I think it's very difficult. I don't have the answer, or at least I don't have it right now, but find a way to have a balance, have that kid to be as normal as possible, whatever that means in the 21st century or now, and still be able to know what those things are. That to me is a real problem.
I have a mentor who's a superintendent of a school district here in Oklahoma City, just a brilliant, brilliant man. And he has a policy with his kids, and it's a one-to-one policy. You can an hour outside or an hour doing chores or an hour doing your homework, whatever it is, and then you can have an hour of where you are on technology, where you're watching TV, where you're on social media, where you're playing a video game. So it's that one-to-one policy. And like you said, Ramon, it's finding the right balance. And that's a literal balance, one-to-one. You do an hour of chores, or you go out and you play sports for an hour, and then you get an hour where you can go and play video games. So again, it's going to be different for every child. But it is, as a parent, is finding the right balance. And that can be difficult, especially, we talk about the pandemic, we talk about kids, who had to go to remote learning. those are years of social skills that kids don't get back, right?
Hmm.
And then more and more more and more of our lives are online, and more kids' lives are online. And I mean, when we were 16, Ron, I don't know about you, but when I turned 16, I wanted my driver's license. It's the first thing I did. I was dreaming of that thing from the time I was 14 to the time I was 16. Today, kids don't have as much of a desire to get like a driver's license because a lot of their lives are on their devices, right?
Hmm.
They've got this whole world that's on their devices. They can interact with their friends on the devices. And so it's just a different world. But it's just, again, finding digital well being, finding that healthy balance. And as a parent, you just have to be mindful of your kids and knowing when too much is enough or too much is enough, and just being mindful of who's the kid hanging out with, who's the kid communicating with online, where are they going, are they going to forums they shouldn't be going on, are they talking to people they shouldn't be talking to. It's understanding who your kids are communicating with, and understanding what they're looking at, how much time they're spending on their devices.
That's another thing you just said that reminded me of. I have an Xbox, um, and I like to play Minecraft sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
there's something in there that where the Xbox like lets you like create groups and invite other people, and it's sort of a public forum where you can invite others to build stuff with you and stuff. And I've looked at those, and there are some that are very concerning because they specifically target kids from a certain
Yep.
age. It's like, oh, let's come with me and we're gonna build this, but there's some inappropriate messages in that
Mm-hmm.
post or whatever. Which, again, for me, I don't know. It's just a hard no. Technology. I mean,
Yeah.
you may call me an
Yeah.
idealistic person, and I could be, but I just don't like it at all.
Yeah, no, I understand. But kids today, they have to interact with technology. So yeah, depriving them that skill is not going to be healthy either. So again, it's a balance. It's a balance because kids are going to have to use these tools. They're not going away. Right? All of their lives are going to be on these devices. Their jobs are likely going to have to be on the devices.
Hmm.
The way they communicate with people is likely going to be on these devices. So it's finding the balance, and it's teaching. When I was uh, I, uh, a kid, I can remember this clearly. Me and some friends were walking, home, and a van pulled up to us and asked if we wanted candy. And we're like, no. And we start walking home because our parents had taught us, if you don't talk to strangers, right? And certainly if some stranger offers you something, you do not take that from that stranger. And so that's a skill I learned because my parents taught me that skill. And so it's on the parents to say, hey, in this digital world, you see this stuff, you stay away from it. And be careful who you're talking to. Be careful who you're communicating with. And a lot of times, the person you're communicating with is not the person they say they are.
Hmm.
Right? This person might say they're a 13-year-old boy when in reality, they're a 35-year-old man,
Hmm.
right? Or a 13-year-old girl and they're a 35-year-old man. So it's teaching them that you have to be discerning. You have to be careful about who you're interacting with, the kind of information that you're posting online. Don't don't overshare online, right? If you're a kid, do not overshare online. If you're a parent, don't overshare online. There's so many parents out there who overshare online, and it can be dangerous for the kids. It can also be dangerous for the kids' future. These parents that like to post, funny stories about their kids. Well, that could hurt their kids' future, but it could also be dangerous in that, somebody IRL, as they might say, may be able to find your kid in real life because, of all the stuff you're sharing online. And kids as well, be careful. Don't post, where you go to school or where you're going to be or when you're going to be at a certain place.
Hmm.
Be careful of that stuff. When you're an adult, if you're going out of town, don't post that to Facebook, right? Wait until you get back from your vacation, and then you can post the vacation photos,
Mm-hmm.
right? You want to share with your friends, and you're going to share with your friends, but wait till you get home, because then the world doesn't know that you're out of town, and that your house is empty.
Yeah. No, no, I totally agree with that. I don't tend to share personal stuff, but if I do take a picture of, I don't know, somewhere like a restaurant I was in, I'm gonna post that a month after the fact because I don't want, I there's always a chance that somebody can know where you are at the moment. That could be dangerous.
Yeah, and we all want to share. We all want to share these great things in our lives, these monumental things, then the challenges too. I mean, when we're struggling, we reach out to our community, and more and more communities are online. There are Facebook friends. There are social media followers. There those who. So we want to share. If I buy a house, I want to share that I bought a house, but maybe wait until you close on the house before you share that, because then people know that you're in the process of buying a house, and then they can send you an email that says, "Hey, I need you to fill out this paperwork." And then, if anybody's bought a house, you realize, like, you get all these random emails from people who want you to fill out paperwork. You don't know who these companies are,
Mm-hmm.
but you're like, okay, I need to fill this paperwork out. So you do it, because you want to buy the house, but so it's an easy way for somebody to fish you, to spearfish you, to socially engineer you if they know that you're in the process of buying a house. So it's just being careful in the way you do share and what you do share. And I'm not telling anybody to not share, because community is important. Community is very important. We all need community, but it's just being careful what you share.
You just said something very important. Key concept: social engineering. What is that?
Social engineering is when somebody tricks you online into doing something, into giving up some personal information, into tricking you into clicking something, downloading an attachment, in order typically to steal something from you, whether it be your financial information, whether it be your personally identifiable information like your social security number, whether it be to steal, uh, an online account, to steal a password, a credential to get in, to break into an online account, like your email or maybe your social media or your bank, to steal something from you.
This has happened to all of us, I think, but sometimes you will have a conversation with someone about, oh, I want to get, um, I don't know, a whole series on Blu-ray or whatever. And then you look at your phone and there's an ad with that specific thing or something very, very
Yeah.
similar to that. Is that an example of social engineering or
No,
not
no, that
necessarily?
wouldn't be social engineering, by any means. That would probably be an example of data mining, of organizations data mining. Now, some would argue they're listening. I don't have any proof that they're not listening. That Google does not have access to your microphone and is listening to you at all times. And I say Google, it could be Amazon, it could be, it could be any of these large organizations. That are they listening to you? No, I don't know, but they do have tons of data on you, and a lot of that data is stuff that you've given to them, right? Or it's stuff that you've looked at. It's that you've clicked on an ad, or you've seen something on Instagram, or one of the examples is like, uh, you are in a room with somebody, right? So you're in a room, you're talking to a person, you get home, you log on to Facebook, and that person is on the people you may know. How did they possibly know that you just met with this person? Well,
Mm-hmm.
geolocation data, right? They have your location. They know your location. They know the location of this other person. They know that you were in a proximity together. And all of this stuff is being mashed up. And again, using algorithms when you say math, to put all of this together and then to serve you up something, whether it be an ad, whether it be a person you may know. One of the classic examples is that we talked about was Target. And this was years and years ago. Target had so much data on a young woman that they knew that she was pregnant before her parents knew
Oh
that
my
she was
god.
pregnant. So they send an ad to like a mailer to the home, and like, why is my daughter getting all these ads for pregnancy stuff, for diapers or for whatever, and of course she was pregnant, and Target knew because of all of the data mining that's going on. So that wouldn't be social engineering; it would just be data, and it's all of the information that we are giving to these companies.
In your opinion, do companies and corporations have a right to do that, to gather information on you? Because it is my understanding that that's very, very unethical from my point of view.
Do they have a right? I mean that's a very philosophical question. I mean we give them the right, right? We when we click terms of service, we give them that right. So is it ethical? It depends. In my opinion, if we are getting something out of it, all right. If I'm getting something out of the value of the data, and that's in the eye of the beholder. Some people love when they get served up ads for things that they may want to buy, right? Some people love the fact that when they click on a cat video, it's going to show them more cat videos, right? That's data. So do the companies have the right? We give them the right, and again, I think it's in the eye of the beholder. Is it concerning how much data we give? Absolutely, and that's why now you're starting to see the federal government, you're starting to see state governments uh, create legislation. That reels in some of the data that these companies are able to collect on you. And you see things like GDPR in Europe and the CCPA in California, and you'll probably start seeing legislation at some point in time. The U.S. federal government's going to get its act together and put together a data privacy legislation. So you're going to start seeing more protections on this because it was a free for all. But it's that old, I liken it, the old adage that, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, right? And
Oh
and
yeah,
that's it. That's why one of the reasons why we get Facebook and Instagram and TikTok for free,
that's something
because we
I
are the product.
I say that all the time. Not necessarily that we are the product, but we are the thing being sold.
Hmm.
Which is essentially the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is, uh, we have become the things that companies trade in a way. We are the data. We are the things that company desire, and they fight for us between themselves.
Oh yeah, I mean data. We say data. It's the old adage: is data is the new oil, right?
Hmm.
It's so valuable. Data is so valuable, and now we've got tools to be able to mine this data effectively. So the more and more data that you have, uh, the more and more value you're going to have. You look at like an artificial intelligence system like a chat GPT, that's just data. They just mined the internet for data. They hoovered up as much data as they possibly could get,
Oh,
and
and
then
by
that's how this tool was created. How it learned how to respond to user queries, and that's because they were able to mine all of this data, and that's why now you're seeing journalists, you're seeing organizations like the Associated Press, you're seeing authors who are like, wait, this tool just took all of my intellectual property,
hmm
trained itself on it, and now can write like me. How is that fair? That is not fair. And whether it's fair or not is up to you. I mean, it's in the eye of the beholder. As a person, as a person who likes to write, who cares about intellectual property, do I think it's fair? No, I don't, because it's going to continue to put the power and into the hands of these technology companies, these very large technology companies. So it's taking the power out of the hands of the many and putting it in the hands of the few,
hmm
and that's a very scary thing.
Yes, I was gonna say that I do accept that I use ChatGPT. I think it's a great tool. But
Absolutely.
I also try to be, let's say, as ethic as possible when I use it. I used it, for instance, to learn Portuguese, to
Hmm.
practice grammar,
Yeah.
to, okay, let's have a conversation with you. Tell me how to say this in Portuguese. Okay, how do I conjugate this verb? Uh, Give me a list of um, verbs or nouns that are very useful to know in Brazilian Portuguese. And so I use that. And also, for instance, okay, give me a structure because I want to have an episode about this. Give me suggestions as to what angles I can do or use, blah 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 blah, and so
Yeah.
forth. But before we get into artificial intelligence, you did say something that caught my attention. You said the federal government get is its act together. So you think there should be some action from the government taken?
Well, when it comes to data privacy, I mean, eventually there's going to need to be, and
Mm-hmm.
there's also going to need to be when it comes to artificial intelligence systems as well. These tools need to be regulated. They need now. I'm not going to say they need to be highly regulated, but they do need regulation. We need protection. People need protection. We need protection. I've gotten in the last 3 months, I've gotten 2 letters from 2 companies I work with that have lost my data. I've had my data stolen, my social security number, my name, my personally identifiable information, uh, my bank, and a hospital network that I work. And it's like, that I need something to protect me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I give this data to my bank. I give this data to my healthcare provider. I have to trust that they're going to protect it effectively. So, and when they do not, there needs to be regulations. There needs to be some punitive damages. Some for those companies. They have to be afraid when they mishandle my data. So there's going to need to be. And when it comes to artificial intelligence systems as well, we go back to the bias. We go back to these systems can have real harms on individuals and marginalized communities when there's bias in these systems. So there needs to be accountability that says there needs to be people looking at these systems and saying, is it biased? If you've got an artificial intelligence system hiring, like using a system to hire someone, is it fair? Is it giving an opportunity to this woman as it is to this man?
Mm-hmm.
Is it giving that same? Is it same fairness when it comes to predictive policing? When in artificial intelligence systems, is it policing in areas more than it is in other areas? When it comes to facial recognition systems, are they able to recognize a person who looks like me as much as a person who might have darker skin than me? Why is that important? Well, if a system can't recognize a person of darker skin, which traditionally these systems have struggled to recognize darker skin faces because they were trained on the internet, which is filled with people who kind of look
Prejudice.
like me, white people, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So when they misidentify a person, that's going to open them up to harassment potentially. I say harassment is a strong word, but to maybe law enforcement, questioning them, saying, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And it might end up. There's been cases where these systems have misidentified people, and people have been arrested. Real cases where people have been arrested and they've been held in custody because an artificial intelligence system has misidentified them. So to get back to your question, I think these systems, when it comes to both data privacy and when it comes to artificial intelligence as well, when it comes to cybersecurity as well, there needs to be uh, regulation and people looking out for people, to regular people.
No, I agree with that 100%. I believe in regulation, and I don't think that everything should be free or the Wild West, because we have seen historically that when you give people a lot of liberty, they do go crazy. There's no control.
Yeah. And I think you can go too far with regulation
Oh
as well.
yes. Oh yeah.
So it's a balance. It's finding the right balance, but it's important, for us to make sure that these tools are being used in a fair way. That these tools are being used in a way that's not, when it comes to data privacy, that's not being hurtful to a consumer. when it comes to artificial intelligence systems. So they're being fair to all people. So it is important that we have those. The best people to regulate it right now, it's not the states. It can't be. You can have a mishmash of state laws, but at the end of the day, it's going to need to be the federal government. They're going to have to step up, and they're going to have to start regulating these things. And it's just right now, our federal government, our country is so polarized. It's hard to make big legislative changes right now because even on these important issues, but they're coming. They're coming. The Biden administration has made some important strides when it comes, to artificial intelligence systems, and they're going to continue. It's going to continue to improve, and so it's important for us to just make sure that we're protecting people.
To take it outside the United States for a moment, I heard that the Brazilian government is also stepping in, trying to see for ways to prevent disinformation being spread in social media, because that's a big problem. What is your stance or your opinions about disinformation?
Oh, I think it's a big problem. I think it's going to become an even bigger problem now with artificial intelligence. When we talk about how easy it is to create deepfakes, we're already starting to see deepfake audio, deepfake video. I just read an article today where people were putting Taylor Swift in compromising positions using footage of pictures from the game. She was at the Kansas City Chiefs game, and people were sharing provocative images of her based on these images and using artificial intelligence tools. And that's an example of ways that we're seeing this. And these things start out a lot, and sadly, they start out when they're with harassing typically women. You start seeing celebrities, and then you start seeing regular individuals being harassed using these tools. And then you start thinking about, its effect on news, its effect on politics, its effect on the way it could be used. And we're starting to see it. We're starting to see it be used in elections. And this is a very important year globally when it comes to elections. Of course, here in the United States, we've got a presidential election in 2024. But I think I can't remember the number, but maybe it was 180 elections in 2024 or something. I may be making that number up, but there's a lot of important elections globally, and these tools are going to be used. And that's part of the reason why media literacy is so important, and understanding that we can recognize when this is a deep fake. This is an artificial intelligence system being used to create an audio or video or a picture of somebody doing something they haven't done. I mean, we saw, when Trump was indicted, they had pictures of Trump being arrested, President Trump being arrested by police that were created by artificial intelligence systems. Now, they clearly looked fake, but there were still people sharing them online, right? And that's because there were people that were so excited that Trump got indicted that they just had to share these things. And it's understanding. Don't share that. Don't share those tools. Don't share that stuff. Don't spread misinformation. Don't spread disinformation. Become a good steward of information. How do we teach people how to do that? And then how do we teach them not to share that information? And that's both a personal choice, but it's also education.
No, and deepfakes, they might be recognizable now, but in the near future, it will be almost impossible to tell whether or not this is actually a real image.
Yes, yeah. And when you think of the Access Hollywood tape, when we get back to President Trump, that he gets out, he says some very provocative things that appeared on Access Hollywood tape. He could easily say, "Hey, that was fake." Today, and it'd be hard to say that it wasn't. Now, there's going to be technology that is going to be used to help identify whether something is a deepfake or not. But the technology is always going to be playing catch up. It's always going to be a little bit behind. The good guys are always a step behind the bad guys, and it's just the nature of life and the nature of innovation and the nature of trying to play catch up to keep us safe. And so, technology is going to play a role. but they're always going to be a step ahead.
No, and you mentioned companies and stuff using your information and data mining, not necessarily for, let's say, in quote, harmful motives, but you do have on a global scale countries that are enemies and they attack each other and their populations on a daily basis with information.
Yeah.
So this adds another layer of complexity to this problem, where I don't know, messages are being fabricated to make, for instance, to get out of the United States for a moment, I don't know, the inhabitants of Switzerland to believe, I don't know, that the Italians are concocting an invasion against them or something like that.
Oh yeah,
So
we're seeing it. We're seeing it in Gaza right now. We're seeing it in Ukraine as well. These things are already happening. I mean, they happened in the troll farm. To bring it back to America, the troll farm in the 2016 election, we saw Russia create a huge disinformation campaign. For pro-Trump and anti-Hillary Clinton, and you could argue how much that swayed that election, but it certainly had an impact. And so we've already seen it. We've seen it, and it's only going to continue to become more effective because the tools are more effective.
you spoke earlier about, let's say, external attacks on children in with technology, or let's say attacks that are obvious, like don't talk to strangers who are offering you stuff online, etc., etc., etc. Be a little cynical. Not everybody that's talking to you is exactly that person. That could be another identity or whatever. What about things that they don't necessarily see? Let's say, for instance, this very famous example of girls being conditioned by social media like Instagram or something to put a lot of emphasis on their image, and where when they're not accepted or they don't get enough likes or something like
Mhm.
that, they get depressed, and these are very real consequences
Absolutely,
of that.
absolutely.
What do you have to say about that?
I mean, body dysmorphia is a huge problem right now. I mean, Instagram all but admitted that it causes depression in young females. Through the feedback loop and through you know, uh, image is so important to young people. You're building your community. You're trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to understand your place in the world. And it's always been important to be a part of a clique or a community when you're a child, when you're a young person. Even before social media, schools, the hierarchy of where you are on the popularity structure of your high school or your middle school was incredibly important to young people. And that's only been augmented in social media because it's literally there. I mean, you can see it in the amount of likes you get, in the amount of clicks you get, in the amount of comments you get. So that is a huge problem, and to me, I think it's education. It goes back to education. It goes back to educating young people on this is a problem, and you need to understand digital well-being. You need to understand the impacts that social media can have on your mental health and the way you feel about yourself. It's having those conversations, and it's understanding and giving kids the tools to say, yeah, I don't feel good. This doesn't make me feel good. And to be understanding and to listen. And as parents, as uncles, as aunts, as teachers, as educators, as community members, we have to listen to our young people. We don't do a great job often of listening to young people. And we have to listen. We have to say, we but young people also need to open up and tell us when they're struggling as well. And you you can only help someone when they want to get help. And
Mhm.
somebody, if somebody's struggling when it comes to that stuff, they have to reach out and they have to seek help. But we have to be there, to give them the tools. There's an old case of a young woman who ended up, killing herself. This happened in Texas. She was being harassed online, and it turned out to be some people who knew her. She was being harassed online. This was years and years ago, and she reached out. They would reach out to her online, and they send her photos of herself, nude photos of her. They send her harassing messages, and she opened up, to the school district, and the school district's response was, change your phone number. Go change. Well, there's nothing we can do. That's not good enough. That is not good enough. And this woman and this young lady ended up killing herself because the harassment got so bad and she just couldn't take it anymore. And that is unacceptable as a digital community. We can't let that happen. We can't. We have to be better than that. And I say all of us. I'm not trying to put the blame on the school district or anything else. We as a society need to be better than that. And we need to do better. And we need to give kids the tools to understand when they're struggling. And we need to listen to kids. And we need to do better than just change your phone number, because this harassment, it's in their bedrooms. Right, in the old days, it was in the schoolyard. Right, you would get kids making fun of you in the schoolyard, but you could go home and you could get away from it. Today, you can't get away from it because it's in your phones, it's in your devices. This harassment, and it's coming into your bedrooms. And so we have to give kids the tools and the education, and we to be able to manage this stuff, and then also listen. And when they're struggling, give them the resources to seek help.
When we first spoke, I talked to you about a concern that I have, that, I have some studies and I do my best. I do research on the people that I bring in the podcast, and I read articles and I read whole books. Sometimes I read whole books before I talk to the author of that book, so that I can establish a good questioning line, or have a good structure for the episode, or demonstrate that there's some interest on my part of that, which is, everyone who I invite to the podcast, I do so because I genuinely have an interest in talking to them. But having said that, I see that people who don't put in the work, people who are not necessarily trained as historians or know about history, are getting a lot of traction. And it's a little frustrating sometimes, because, like I said, I do put my work in. I produce, in my opinion, high quality content that's educational, that's for people to have access to highly specialized information through experts. And for me to see, I don't know, a short on YouTube about a guy who clearly doesn't know what he's saying, and let's talk about, I don't know, just inventing something, creating some fiction about the pyramids in Egypt, and that guy has thousands and thousands of views and comments and spreading messages and stuff. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I'm in no means an expert in your field, so I certainly can't speak to that. I can speak to the technology aspect, to the content aspect, and it can be frustrating. I know it can be frustrating, Ramon. I know when you want to do a good job, when you feel like you're putting in the effort and you're putting in the work and you're doing the research and you're doing the digging and you're doing the due diligence and you're trying to have good conversations, and you see this mindless, I don't, can I say the word CRND? When you see this mindless stuff, it get way above you, or way above, more, all these views, and it can be so frustrating. It can be really dejecting. It can be just depressing, really, right? Because you're putting in all this work. But I honestly believe, Ramon, that good content will find a place. It will find a home. People want good content. They want it. They want it. They crave it, and they're going to crave it more and more. I mean, the internet with artificial intelligence systems now is like more and more of it is just AI generated junk.
Mm-hmm.
So the internet is now being consumed by AI generated junk. It's funny. I see, like Amazon has listings for products that clearly that they came from ChatGPT, because it says in the thing, it says like, this is trademark. We can't create we can't do this. They didn't actually even change the title, right? They just put it up there on this product. So it's clearly from like a ChatGPT or some sort of tool like that.
Hmm.
Um, so more and more, the internet is going to be filled with that kind of junk because it's just so easy to create content now. Uh, but I think eventually people are going to want to consume good content. They're going to want good information. I truly believe that. I hope so. And I believe you'll find a place, Ramon, and your podcast will find a place. And your, what you do will rise in some way. It may not have the clicks or the views, but in some way you're going to make a difference,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right? And you may not see it immediately, but you are making a difference. You are, and sometimes you don't see it, but you're making a difference.
No, and I thank you for that. And let me clarify something for the audience. It's not that I see the worth of this podcast through the views or the likes that it gets.
Yeah.
That's not my point at all. I don't necessarily care if I have, I don't know, 20,000 followers or whatever. That's not my objective. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel my content is not being pushed as much as it should be in this environment where these mindless creatures are being pushed more than me. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And that again, that's can go back to the algorithm. It can go back to a lot of content, sensationalist content is going to get more clicks, and therefore it's kind of like a snowball, right? More clicks, more comments, the more likely you're going to see it on the algorithm, because the algorithm is saying, the more likely you're going to see it on the feed, I should say, because the algorithm is saying this is something that people want to see, right? Because it's generating clicks, it's generating comments. That's why sensationalist comment or sensationalist content often gets more views, because people are commenting on it, right? It's people, thoughtful. People don't necessarily always comment on thoughtful things. They comment on, the latest insult about trying to bump Biden or Trump. That's the type of stuff people are going to comment on, because it elicits a reaction, a visceral reaction that people want to comment on. They want to like, or they want to share, or that's the type of stuff. And then the algorithm says, oh, well, this thing is trending right now. Let's share it with more people. And then it creates kind of that feedback to where more people see that content. Whereas some of the more thoughtful stuff, the stuff that maybe wouldn't generate that kind of sensationalist or those feelings of that visceral reaction, doesn't get as much play.
Something that gets me very angry, for instance, and I know you know what I'm talking about, is when you go to YouTube and you see these videos that have a lot of views. Usually they have in the thumbnails, it's just people like this, like they're surprised or something, and the clickbaity title and stuff. That to me is so cheap. I hate it, because it's not necessarily a reflection of of how good the episode or whatever actually is. It's just designed to get your attention. And it is concerning to me that we live in a society where, because of what you said, we're being overwhelmed with information, but also we're being conditioned to want that information now. I want that now. I want the answer now, and I don't want to have to think really hard about this or have to navigate through a complex argument to get the answer to my question. That to me is very concerning too.
Yeah, nuances. It can be hard because we want the correct answer now. Again, I'm not calling anybody out. Ramon, I don't know your industry. I don't know your competitors or anything like that. So I'm certainly not calling anybody out. But you liken it to the old days of SEO. These giant cottage industries were created to try and game Google, to try and get your content up in search, up in the search engine, right? So it's like let's create just these meaningless articles with just buzzwords of
Mm-hmm.
like buzzwords that the articles were just gibberish, but they contained the right buzzwords to help push a website up in the Google search rankings. Google got better at policing that stuff, and then but then people continue to find ways, to gain Google a little bit. It's a certain, and there people are going to continue to do that. They're going to see how can I create the best headline, to get the highest in on the YouTube algorithm, to get the rank the most in YouTube, or what kind of description can I use, or what kind of keywords should I use. That's going to continue to be a thing, but it's going to be, YouTube and not I say YouTube, but other search engine algorithms, other algorithms as well. They're going to continue. They're going to find a way, because people are going to want eventually good content, and so they will find a way to deliver that content. Hopefully, in a perfect world. That's what I hope. I don't know, but I would like to think that hopefully, eventually people will get good content. But it is something we have to be mindful of. In my TEDx talk, I give the example of, you search Robert Downey Jr. And this came from a Wired article that I actually read, and I did my own search. But Robert Downey Jr., of course, the Avengers, right? He's one of the most highly famous actors in Hollywood, highest paying actors in Hollywood. He's Iron Man, or was Iron Man, in the most famous, successful franchise in movie history. When you Google, you get what you expect to find, right? You get stuff about his movies, his co-stars. You see Iron Man, but then when you search Scarlett Johansson, an equally caliber actress, star of the Marvel franchise as well, you don't see much about her movies. What you see is stuff about her looks, her appearance, her beauty, and then that reinforces that stereo, or that reinforces that belief that men are valuable for their work, while women are valuable for their appearance and their beauty, and that's just not true. And that doesn't have a place in our society today. But Google can help reinforce that belief through its search engine. So these are important issues that we do need to address, and it's going to become more and more important as the internet just gets flooded with this AI generated junk.
Yeah, but I think it's very important that we keep being optimistic, and that we do have a desire to at least get better. Because yes, I understand the concerns and everything, but at the same time, I do appreciate your perspective that we need to aspire to something better, and we want to believe that things are going to get better. It's also very important to retain that. Do you have any specific resources you'd like to suggest or recommend? And like, for instance, okay, when I want to do a search of this, I go to X website or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, first off, Ramon, before I go to that, I'd like to say, for you, this is a passion project for you, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I can't read your mind, but I imagine you do this because you find passion in it.
Oh, yes.
And you believe in the topic. You believe people should be educated on this topic. And that passion is going to rise. It's going to rise. When people are passionate about something, people see that. And it's a matter of just continuing to do it. Just continuing to doing something like a podcast, building a platform, a brand. It can be a real challenge, and that's where people they lose focus. And I've certainly started my fair share of podcasts. Haven't lasted very long. Like we talked about a blog. I have a blog. I've written on it 100,000 words, probably, but I don't think I've posted in a year. It's continuing to just pound and pound and pound and pound. And people are going to reward you for that, Ramon, because they see you're passionate, and they see that you're taking the time to be a thoughtful interviewer, to be somebody who knows the subject better, that doesn't just go out there and just try and get clicks and try and get shares. And that's people are going to see through that, Ramon. So I want to encourage you when it comes to that. And I know you may not need that encouragement, but I just want to say that to your viewers as well. It's just that they encourage you, right? That they encourage you by going out and sharing your podcast, by going out and driving people to it, by saying, I've got this podcast that I listen to that I really like, and sharing it with friends and sharing it with your social media networks. I'd encourage people and listeners to do that as well, to continue to encourage Ramon and reward him for his hard work and his diligence.
No, I really thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I want to also clarify to the audience that in no way I am thinking about ever stopping doing this or something, because as you said, I'm very passionate about this. I really love doing this. And it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes with how crap, like you said earlier, is being pushed, like not necessarily from people I think that are my competitors, but in all sorts of topics. We have good, let's talk about, I don't know, sports journalism. You have great pundits, political pundits, and then you have these guys who have no idea what they're doing, and those guys are the ones being pushed. That can be a little frustrating, but I want to let people know that in no way I am ever thinking of stopping working, or there's going to be a lot of Archipiélago Histórico for a while.
Yeah, sports is a great example of that. Because we are seeing that where, and I think it would news as well, is like I look at like a 60 Minutes or a Frontline. These great documentary style news, like they are so wonderful, and I love them, and I love to consume them. They're challenging to make. They're expensive to make. It is a whole lot cheaper to just put two people, on a stage somewhere and have them argue back and forth about an issue, right? And so we do lose that. And when we talk about sports and news, it can be a real challenge. We are losing that. I mean, when you talk about the biggest sports network, I've read articles, where it's people are, getting tired of just seeing, people just yelling at each other on about sports, and instead of having good, in-depth content on what's going on in sports, what's going on in the teams, and it's the same thing with news. But you got to go out and you got to seek, and maybe that's a good segue into your next question, which is you've got to go out and seek good information, seek good content. Well, whatever the subject matter is, you just have to go out and seek it. So I'm a big podcast guy. I love podcasts. I think podcasts are a great way to learn about a subject quickly. I'm a journalist by trade. I do cybersecurity now. How I learned how to do cybersecurity was for years. I just decided I'm going to read as much stuff on cybersecurity as I can. I'm going to listen to a daily podcast called The Cyber Wire that I listen to. I listen to it every day. It's a half-hour podcast, and I just, over years and years and years, I self-taught myself cybersecurity. It's the same thing with artificial intelligence bias, AI bias, with algorithmic bias. I found that content. I thought it was fascinating. I thought I could speak on it. And so I just went out there and I found every good piece of content I could on that subject. I read it. I collected that information. I collected those sources. I put them in a place, and I found a good article that I thought was interesting or meaningful. I would put the link somewhere so I could return to it when I was developing the presentation. So, it's about going out and seeking those sources. Podcasts are a great way. Newsletters are a great way as well. And then going out and online, but don't get your news from Facebook. Don't get your, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, they've got their purpose, especially like, YouTube on how-to videos, how to do this or that, and more and more people are getting how-to videos and stuff like that on TikTok. They're getting how to if I'm wanting to learn how to train my dog, I'm going to TikTok and I'm going to these people that can give me quick videos on how to train the dog. So they've got their purpose, but it's just finding high quality content. If
Yeah.
that answers your question.
No, no, I have taught myself some things. Like I said, I among other things, I used ChatGPT to learn Portuguese, which was very useful for me. So it's a great technique, but again, it depends on what you want to use it for.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we have a responsibility to use those well.
Technology is a tool. It gets back to it. A theme of this podcast is it is a tool, and it is here, and we have to use it for good and not ill. We have to use it so it improves our lives and not diminishes our lives. So it gives us an opportunity to sit here and have a great conversation on your podcast, but it doesn't make it so I am desperate and lonely and depressed and doom scrolling through social media because I can't get outside this instead of finding community, finding a good church, finding or a good synagogue or mosque, finding a good nonprofit that I can serve on, to help out with, to go and to volunteer, to
Mhm.
get out, to do stuff that's meaningful instead of binge watching Netflix every night.
Yep, yep. Which also has a place. For some reason, I've been watching a lot of documentaries about pro wrestling. I don't know why.
Yeah, there you go. I do like a good Netflix binge right now. So I am certainly not saying, but again, you just have to, again, digital well-being. You have to make sure that
Yes.
you're being mindful of
Mhm.
how you're using whatever technology you're using, whatever digital device you're using, whatever software or platform you're using, how you're using it, how often you're using it, and what you're using it for, and how is it making you feel.
Yeah. I'm gonna give a plug that nobody's paying me for. I recommend Dark Side of the Ring. It's done by Vice, and I think it was in conjunction with some Canada producers or something. It's documentaries about pro wrestlers. Very good stuff.
Yes, it's a Vice documentary.
No, it's a series of Vice documentaries. There are,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they have like 5 seasons of many episodes, 40 minutes each. Very good stuff. Very well done. Is there anything you'd like to promote? I know that you are also an author.
Yeah, I wrote a book a while ago. I wouldn't call myself an author. It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I dabbled in some writing. I do have a blog called Placid Press.
Hmm.
You can go to my website. It's CoreyPatrickWhite.com. It's just my name. It's got more information about me, the things I speak on, just some of the stuff I do, some of the podcasts. You'll be able to, as soon as you release this, I will put it up to that website. You can learn more about me. That it's got my TEDx talk that I gave on AI bias, so you can find that there. I do some light acting as well. Oklahoma's got a thriving film community here, so I've done some work in the acting community. So it's got lists some of the stuff, some of the work on films I've been in, stuff like that. I would also say come check out our on my work. Future Point of View. It's fpov.com. So future point of view, fpov.com. We're a company in Oklahoma. We help businesses with the way they use technology. We help businesses in all organizations and all different facets of life. We educate user leaders on how they can use technology effectively, to boost efficiency, to be more profitable, to use things like artificial intelligence. How do we use artificial intelligence to win? How do we use it to be better than our competitors? But how do we use it in a way that's also healthy? How do we encourage our employees to be digitally well as well? And then how do we keep data and information safe? How do we protect this information and this data as well from increasingly dangerous cybersecurity attacks.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, folks. And also, I think that in this episode, we've been able to establish what are the main problems. Certainly, there are many more problems we haven't discussed, but there are many problems. But I think that you have done a magnificent work just laying out the main things that we need to look out for, the problems, and also just instilling this sense of competency and responsibility when using technology, which is very important. We also have a responsibility to use these things well. Um, but yeah, I believe this has been a great episode, and I think that people will like it a lot. Well, thank you for everything, Corey Patrick White, for participating in this episode of Archipiélago Histórico. This has been another edition of Archipiélago Histórico. Until next time.